pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Appeal number 3157, the applicant 411 West Wayne LLC, property located at 411 West Wayne Avenue, requests an extension of time for obtaining permits under Section 280-144 of the Code for 6 months until May 5th, 2025. Is anyone here on that matter? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. Fred Frommold here on behalf of the applicant. We had appeared before you a year ago and had obtained variances, and you were kind enough to grant an extension that was needed in connection with the land development approval process. And although this was a relatively small building with a residential use on the first level, or I'm sorry, on the second and third levels, it did have a commercial use on the first level, and therefore required approval from the commissioners for land development. There was also an issue that had come up with respect to the size of a handicap parking space that was shown on the plan, and we obtained a waiver from the state on that, and that took time. And we're back before the commissioners, and preliminary land development approval, final land development approval was granted on October 14th, but we're still waiting the approval from the Darby Creek Joint Sewer Authority in order to finalize and record the plan. So we're hopeful. I had spoken to the engineer as recent as this morning, and he's hopeful that within the month we will have that approval, but we have asked for that additional time in case. Okay. So we would appreciate the extension.
I guess my question is it makes sense just to go 6 months out. You don't, if you need it again, we'll see you back.
We would appreciate that. Our hope is that we're nowhere near that time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is there any comment, questions from the board? No. No. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. It's granted. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, appeal number 3191, the applicant Adam D. Gold and Monica Greer Gold, property located at 500 West Beech Tree Lane and zoned R2 residential. The applicant seeks a variance from section 280-20D1 of the code to locate a pergola attached to their residence within the side yard setback of 20 feet, or such other relief which may be required in conformity with the exhibits and testimony presented.
Evening, Nick Cagnelia, representing the applicant. I'll do a brief opening, then we'll swear in the applicant and they can testify. So this is a property where the home was built approximately 10 years ago. We went back, and actually there was a zoning variance granted at that time. That variance was merely to treat the yard as a side yard rather than a rear yard. You'll see on the plan, and actually I have two additional exhibits that I've marked. One is A12, which is the plan, and the other one is A13, which was the zoning relief. You'll see that this is on West Beech Tree and Eagle, and it's a property that is surrounded on 3 sides by roads. Eagle Road and West Beech Tree, as it goes around, is on 2 sides. So we have a 4-sided property, 3 sides are bordered by a road. The driveway comes in off of Beech Tree in this area. The rear yard or side yard, actually, relief was granted to treat this as a side yard rather than a rear yard. Actually, since it is a 3-sided front yard setback, you'll see 40 foot is required along each of the roadways. That the code isn't really that clear whether it should be a side yard or a rear yard, but we did go to zoning and we did get relief to treat it as a side yard. Now that wasn't this applicant, that was 2 or 3 owners ago, and a newer home was built on the property. The request for relief here, currently there's a ground level deck here, and there's basically no trees on the site. They're looking to cast some shade on the area in the back here, and requesting that a pergola be constructed around in this area here.
to give away the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name, please.
Adam D. Gold, Gold.
Adam, where do you reside?
500 West Beech Tree Lane.
And who do you live there with?
I live there with my wife Monica and our daughter Camille.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as A2, and that's the deed to the property.
That is correct.
And you purchased the property when?
We closed in December of 2019.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as A3, and that is basically an aerial of the property. And we've seen the site plan, and if you can just describe for the board what the aerial represents, similar to what this, the site plan showed.
Sure. So what you can see in A3 is our property, which is bounded by West Beech Tree Lane and Eagle Road. And essentially, we have a road to our left, a road in our front, and a road to our right. And our what we colloquially refer to as our backyard, which I understand is possibly a side yard, is basically a sliver about 20 feet from my house to the property line.
And where are you intending to construct the pergola? I notice there's like a ground level deck there. Is that where the pergola would be constructed?
That's right. So it's a ground level, it's a patio, it's concrete right now, and it's quite small. What we were looking to do is basically just make that slightly larger. And the reason for the pergola is, it's not quite as clear from this picture, but our rear yard faces due west. And so essentially, there is no tree cover in our yard. There's also no tree cover in anyone's yard actually west of us. And so essentially it is just a direct line of sun, which for basically about 3/4 of the year creates a not just bright, but frankly way too hot of a place to sit and be outside.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4. You just tell the board what that represents. Again, I'm just trying to familiarize the board with the house itself.
And sure, A4 is a picture of the front of our house from West Beech Tree Lane.
And A5, as we showed on the site plan, is the driveway.
That's a view from our house from West Beech Tree Lane from the north.
And the patio area is to the right of the house there, is that correct?
Correct. That would be in the back of the house that you're seeing in the picture in A5.
Okay, and A6, if you can tell the board what A6 represents, and if you can go through dimensions as well for the pergola.
Absolutely. So this is it's a sketch, I guess, that we inherited from the prior owner, and what we've just done is superimposed in the back, essentially what we are looking to do, which is just, again, to extend the concrete portion of the patio to make it slightly longer. And then the pergola was, after some significant research, a way that we determined that we could have a place that would not only block the sun from the top, but also, most importantly, from the west, because what we can do is basically have a part of our patio that we can cover on the top and bring a sunshade down on the west. So that is essentially what this picture is showing.
And the existing home's actually located right on all the setback lines.
That is correct. And so the home is on the setback line. It is exactly 20 feet from... Hello? It is exactly 20 feet from the back of our house to the property line, and the pergola would extend about 13 feet from the house, which essentially mirrors the current, where the current patio ends.
And we'll present exhibits, but you have support of all the neighbors, including the neighbor most adjacent, is that correct?
That is correct. I have a letter of support from essentially every home on West Beech Tree Lane that you can possibly see from my house, although I think it's fair to say the only neighbor who would even be able to see the pergola would be Mr. and Mrs. Loftus, who live right in back of us there, and they've submitted graciously a letter as well.
Showing you A7, and I guess in particular, reference to the top left photo of A7 kind of shows the dimension or where the pergola would be located.
That is correct. A7 shows where the pergola would be located. It's a smaller portion of the patio. A8 and A9. So A8 and A9 are pictures that I took from the back of my house facing west, and as the board can see, there is no tree cover again in my yard, and although it's a beautiful sky in this picture, there is nothing between the sun and our yard. So from early to mid-afternoon through sunset, basically each afternoon again through about 3/4 of the year, the backyard, the way I would put it, essentially bakes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A10 and as A through E, and if you can tell the board what that represents.
Sure. What I did was I went to each of my neighbors and presented them with a copy of the plan, which was in A6, and asked if they had any objections or questions. And I told them, essentially it's a pergola. We're not putting outdoor speakers. There's no sound. There's no crazy lights or anything. It's basically just for the reasons that I've told the board. And so, again, all of the neighbors, every one of them that you can see from our house, again, graciously supplied a letter of support. Mr. Loftus, who has the house that you can see in the left-hand picture, and A8, I think, is the letter on top, and he's fully in support, as well as his wife.
And is there any lighting or speakers or anything in the pergola?
Other than, I think there's some like dim lights that are built in so that like only the people underneath could see. No, there's no speakers. There's no nothing that would remotely cause anyone to notice it.
Now, A11, this isn't actually, it's kind of an idea of what the pergola's going to look like, not in particular your pergola or where it's located, correct?
That's correct. A11 shows it's a stock photo, but it's essentially the pergola that we wish to provide. It's I think the closest depiction that you can see from it.
I've handed up to the board A12 and A13. A12 is the site plan that I showed to you previously as we started during opening, and A13 is just a copy of the zoning decision showing that this was treated as a side yard in this area. That's all we would have. Just ask the record that the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Without objection. Any questions of the board? I have a question. I see on A6, it shows that the pergola is 13 feet, dare I say, deep. Is there any exhibit that shows what the width of, oh, actually, I see it now, 13 by 13.
Correct.
I found my answer. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question regarding A7. In the lower part, right there where I'm pointing, is that a fan?
Yes, sir. That would be a built-in fan.
Okay, and does it plug into the, does it run off the house electric?
It does. In theory, candidly, we're still deciding whether we want that component. It's an add-on, but it would, if we have it, it would come in through the electrical that would have to be done.
Okay, and then the top picture here, these top ones.
Yes.
What are those? I mean, perhaps I can read it, but the print's too fine. What are these? The V-shaped things? Are they lights or what are they? The strings?
Yeah, that's correct. Those, again, we would have to work with our contractor to finalize it, but in this picture, those would be string lights. They're not connected to the pergola, but they would essentially just be adding some light outside. We actually only have one small light outside, and we're looking for something slightly more.
So it's not really associated with the pergola? Anyway.
It's unrelated to the pergola, that's correct.
Is the pergola hardwired? I don't know if I'm phrasing that correctly, or is it just to have it plugs into a regular outlet to provide what you need?
To the best of my knowledge, it's actually a fair question. It plugs in somewhere, but my understanding, I don't know if it plugs into the exterior outlet or it would have to be sort of hardwired, as the chairman put it. But either way, it would. I think an electrician would be handling that.
Okay. And you mentioned that the concrete patio is going to be extended. Are there any impervious coverage issues that we should be made aware of? I don't see anything in the.
No, we're not asking for any relief, and there is none. Yeah, there's no. I know there. I thought I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure we have it here.
And I know it's the first thing I asked Adam, that we're not asking for any impervious coverage.
It's
in there, yeah.
actually the first thing I checked with the town before I even called council.
Okay. And then my last question might be more for Kevin. Kevin, if the board were inclined to grant this relief, Would the applicant then be able to, at some point in the future, enclose this pergola and extend the home in that sense? Or how is the pergola treated under the code for that purpose?
I would think in the granting of the condition, the orders typically read in accordance with the exhibits and testimony. So that would be something that you would want to clarify.
Thanks.
I don't like agreeing with Kevin, but I agree with him that we would have to come, if he was going to do that, he would come, we'd have to come back here.
That's fair. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. I think you moved your exhibits in.
I did, thank you.
Public comment? Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none. Okay. Do I have a motion? Anyone so inclined? Nope. All right, I guess I'll make the motion. So I would move that we grant the relief requested in accordance with the exhibits, testimony, and plans as presented to us tonight. Is there a second?
Second.
Vote? Zach, I'll start with you.
I'm in favor. Aye.
John?
Aye.
John, I'm also in favor. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, let's see. Appeal number 3192, the applicant Antimo, hopefully I said that correctly, Antimo Farilli Jr., property located at 133 Sugartown Road and zoned C2 Commercial. The applicant seeks a special exception under Section 280-101A1 of the code to change a non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. The prior uses included an auto repair shop, towing company, storage of vehicles, detailing, and the rental and sales of cars. The proposed use involves light motor vehicle engine repairs. Applicant seeks such other zoning relief required by this application, exhibits attached hereto, and the testimony presented to the zoning board. Mr. Kinnick?
Cornelia, you've seen this before. And actually, I think several months ago, it's the same building, actually. The person who was going to take over this Unit A here decided not to. So we're back with a new tenant. Unfortunately, the way this is zoned, pretty much any tenant that comes in here, we have to come back to the zoning board and ask for a special exception to change from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. So that's what we're doing in this instance. Again, we'll have the owner, Andy Farelli, will testify. We have the new tenant, Kevin Cella, who will also testify regarding it. And just to refresh the board's memory again, I'll show you a photo of the site, and these are small garages at the very end of the property with a little parking area as well. So these two buildings here are occupied currently. It's this area here that we're asking for relief for, and we'll be operating a motor vehicle repair shop. Doesn't include body or painting or anything like that, and all work would be done within the garages themselves. So, Andy, I guess we'll start with you.
Sure. I do.
And state your full name and spell.
Antimo Farelli. Antimo Farelli.
Spell both.
Both Antimo. Last name Farelli, Ferrilli.
Here you go, Andy.
Okay.
You're the owner, correct, Andy? Of
Yes.
133 Sugartown. We were here, in April, I believe, last time, correct?
Yes.
How long have you owned the property?
Me, myself?
You yourself? Or you and your dad, I
My
guess?
dad, yeah, I guess 1990 something.
Okay, and then before that, the family owned it, is that
My
correct?
grandfather bought the original property. It was two empty lots.
What was it, about 60, 70 years ago?
Well, it was either late 40s or early 50s.
The deed that's marked here is A2, and this is the deed that actually gave you ownership of the property back in the year 2000.
Correct. That's when I bought my father's share out.
Okay. showing you what's been marked as A3. And I think the board is pretty familiar with this site. This is the site behind the Wawa, the little Wawa, off of Sugartown. One of the tenants is the doggy daycare, and another tenant is actually basketball academy.
Basketball academy.
What's his name? He was drafted by the Sixers.
Yes.
Okay. Another forgettable Sixers draft pick.
Hughes.
Hughes. Yeah, Hughes. So A3, and this is an aerial of the property.
Yes,
And your property is located here with the star on it,
correct.
correct? The Wawa is here,
Correct.
right? Behind you are commercial properties on Lancaster Avenue.
Correct.
Here's Lancaster Avenue in this location, north of this site. You come down to Old Sugartown Road, and across is La Maison, across from Morse Road, and then the Wawa.
Correct. I own the only two properties on the road,
On Sugartown,
on Sugartown.
okay. A little, well, I won't go there. I was going to give it a little personal background, that both him and I lived on Morse Road for
For years.
3 years. A4, is this the look into the property?
Yes,
on
from the
Old
street.
Sugartown? Okay. And A5 shows the Wawa and Old Sugartown going up, the old P&W bridge there, where the
Yes.
bike trail is now.
Yes.
A6 shows Lancaster Avenue, the area on Lancaster Avenue coming down Sugartown,
Yes.
Old Sugartown. And A7, this is a larger plan of A7, and the site in question is the site I'm showing here that's indicated by Unit A, Unit B, and Unit C.
Correct.
And how is Unit C occupied currently?
It's a doggy daycare.
Unit B
That's the basketball academy.
and Unit A would be the
Two
subject
car,
property.
right, the
Okay.
two garages.
And again, this is just a photograph coming into the site, is that correct?
Correct.
And basically what it shows is the isolated nature of the site itself.
Correct.
A11 is the zoning hearing from the last applicant, dated May 31st, 2024, right?
Correct.
Let's talk a
May or
little,
March?
March, or was it April? April.
April, okay.
April was the hearing. Tell us a little bit about the uses that have been located at this site.
Well, Unit A is the first building my grandfather built when he bought the property. So that's where the business operated out of. And then Unit B is, as the company grew, that's what it took over. And Unit A, the first, besides Peter Ferrelli and Sons, which was my grandfather, was Bud's Auto Repair. And he was there for years. And then after
So
Bud...
it was already an auto repair.
Auto
He
repair.
hasn't been there for a while.
Oh, God,
but-
Buddy hasn't. He's passed away probably 20, 25 years. Then it was Aikens Auto Service. Aikens, Aikens, Auto Service. And he was probably there, I don't know, 15, 20 years, 15 years. And then Tommy Carbo rented it, but Aikens still operated it, his business there for 2 or 3 years, even when Tommy was using it for his towing business.
And Unit B?
Unit B was my office. And then when I moved out, it was Young Sports. It was a gym, converted into a gym and things for, I think, from 3 years old to 12. They had programs. And then COVID killed that business. And then the basketball.
And the doggy daycare has actually been there for a while.
Right. Yes, she's been there since I built the building.
And you have a lease with the tenant who's going to testify next, but that lease is conditioned upon...
Upon
the-
approval.
Okay. And is there any additions planned to anywhere on the site?
No.
That's all I have for Andy.
Any board questions?
I have a question, maybe it's for Kevin, but what becomes of the special exception that was granted earlier? Does it just evaporate, just lapse, or do they get stacked one on top of the other, so there's a whole, volumes of special exceptions sitting on these properties?
For the use that was granted earlier this year,
Yes.
My assumption, and I would defer to Gus on this, is that that would expire with the granting of this, since it's a new tenant.
Right, doesn't expire. What would happen is if he came in here with if you determined that it was an identical use, he wouldn't, and Kevin agreed, he wouldn't need a variance. The only reason he needs to come in for another special exception is the zoning officers made the determination that it's different than the last use you approved, so therefore, under the code, if you agree with Kevin, he needs another special exception. He will need a special exception every time that happens. So they don't stack on top of each other. It's just if it's a different use, then you need a new order granting that use as a special exception.
Is it proper to call it abandoned? The use is abandoned?
Well, it's not abandoned until it's not abandoned. I mean, if he comes in here with the same use and a different person wanting to do the same thing you granted last time, that order's still valid and it can be filled. Unfortunately, he can't find a tenant, I'm assuming, they can't find a tenant that has the exact same business. Therefore, that's why he's in front of you now.
So
Upon
if the
this,
current tenant decides to move in,
now, upon this approval, it would be abandoned. I mean, that would
Exactly.
be, yeah.
Okay.
Once you grant it.
okay, that's what we're trying to figure out.
And if that's what, yes.
I think
Then
that's the question.
they would only have an approval for what you're approving tonight in terms of the type of use.
Okay, so if this current tenant doesn't work out for whatever reasons, and somebody with the same uses was granted previously comes back, they still have to go through the process.
Exactly,
Okay.
correct.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, that's the problem with the zoning. Andy's been coming, he asked me the other day, do I got to do this for every tenant? I said, yep, you do. So, Kevin?
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And state your full name, please, and spell.
Kevin Cella.
And Stella is
Cella. C-E-L-E.
You hold that up to you.
Use the microphone.
Yeah, you can sit, yeah. Kevin, you heard Andy say that you have a lease with him conditioned upon this approval. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
It's working. Good. And you're the sole member and sole employee of the auto service?
Yes.
And you're the sole, your wife may come in and do book work for you or something of that
Yes,
nature?
of course.
Okay. But you're the only guys who could be working there? All right. And you're an auto mechanic? Remember, you got to respond.
Okay, yes.
And you want to conduct your auto repair business at the site that's been shown as Unit A?
Yes.
And what type of work do you do? What type of auto repair work do you do?
So I do replace the brakes, rotors, tire, oil change, spark plugs, exhaust pipe, just for the outdoor repairing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of minor auto repair type work. You're not rebuilding engines?
No,
or
no
doing
rebuilding engine,
transmissions?
no transmission.
And you'll be conducting everything inside the building, inside Unit
Yes.
C, or Unit A, I'm sorry. And how many cars do you foresee having at any one time?
Probably 5, 6.
Okay, and the cars, at least when they're parked, we parked in this gravel area next to Unit A.
Yes.
What's your hours? Will you be open Monday to Saturday?
I open Monday to Saturday, 8 o'clock to 6 p.m.
Okay.
8 to 6. Yes.
And do you use any hazardous materials? No.
No.
Is there any unruly noise or anything of that nature?
No.
Okay. No emission of dust or smoke or any fire
No.
hazards?
No.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Great. So with the operation of this shop, will there be any exterior storage of tires, parts, particularly like oil, anything that could be, or even just a bit of a hurdle for any other users who are coming through with this property?
So I open the shop and I find the company for the oil, for the bad oil, and I save inside. in a small tank. And so the company, I pay the company and it's going to pick up the bad oil. So I'm working inside.
Are you storing any materials or supplies outside of the building?
No.
Thank you.
I probably, well, you may know, is there a car lift in the garage space? Or
So yes.
Is there one now, or are you
So
going to
no,
put one?
no, I buy it.
You're going to install a
Yes.
lift? Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Anything else, Nick?
I have nothing else, just, again, request the exhibits to be part of the record, please.
Without objection. Okay. Any public comment? Seeing none. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move that we grant the applicant the special exception under Section 280-101A, 1 and 1 in parens of the zoning code to change the non-conforming, the presently non-conforming use to another non-conforming use as the applicant testified to here this evening.
Okay. Do you want to add in based on documents and exhibits submitted?
Based on the documents and evidence submitted.
Okay. All right, and that's still seconded, John? All right, and then we'll go the same direction. John? John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, appeal number 3193, the applicant Villanova University, property located at 800 East Lancaster Avenue and zoned PI planned institutional. The applicant seeks relief to place the lettering for the name of the new library above the entrance. The library is located in the middle of the main campus, and the lettering will not be visible from any of the neighboring homes or streets. The height of the entrance does not permit lettering which conforms to the 15-foot height requirement. Applicant proposes lettering which at its highest point is 19 feet, 5 7/8 inches above grade. Applicant seeks a variance from section 280-123B of the code or such other relief which may be required in conformity with the exhibits and testimony presented.
Evening.
Busy night.
Nick Canellia. So you've seen this before. It's the library. Remember, there was relief granted for parking, and there was relief granted for height. Really, the relief granted, I have attached the zoning opinion. It's not really relevant here, except for the fact that the slope does require the stairs and elevation of the arc. And you'll see that all we're putting here, again, just to show this, this is from the last zoning hearing. It just shows the location of the library, smack dab in the middle of campus, you know, hundreds and sometimes thousands of feet from any nearing neighbor. And as you heard in the application, it can't be seen from anywhere outside of campus. The proposal, I'll show you the rendering. I think we're familiar, we've seen the library before. And the request here is, as you'll see, there's, because of the slope, there's steps leading up to this archway here. And what is above it is a naming of the hall. So it's Vic Magidi Hall, and that's engraved into the stone. And you can't see it real well in this A13, and actually A13 doesn't show the steps which are required. It was just a rendering that was prepared for the application previously. And you see above here is Vic Magidi Hall. That's what we're asking for relief for, is for that to be higher than 15 feet. And clearly, as you can see, it is, you know, it can't be seen from anywhere, by anybody, unless it's someone approaching the building itself and probably actually going under the archway. But swear in, Ryan, please.
Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, I do.
It's Ryan, Ryane, Hoban, Hoban.
And Ryan, what's your position with Villanova University?
I'm a senior project manager with Villanova's Facilities Management Department.
And you're the project manager on this particular library
Yes.
issue? And I've marked as A1 a copy of the deed, probably from about 1842, showing the ownership of the property, correct?
Yes.
And A3 is an aerial that we made. Again, I think everyone's familiar with where Villanova is located and actually where this particular library is located, right smack dab in the middle of campus. And A4 again kind of shows on the campus map. As A4 show the location of the proposed library on the campus map. Ron, you have to.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, yeah. I know, you have to, I know, I've been going on. I should ask you the question and you should respond. Now, what we have here too is the sign package. Now, this sign package, this is for the entire signs for the building, correct?
Yes.
It wasn't just limited, we didn't really just limit it to it,
Correct.
to that. So A5, or a picture you're seeing there by Ramza is a picture of the proposed library.
Yes.
It's not constructed yet, right?
Correct. Under construction currently.
And then A5 shows the site plan, again, showing where it's located on campus in relation to a couple of the other halls.
Yes.
Nick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
on this particular spot, can you identify what entrance we're talking about?
Yes. Would it be, there's two red lines here, correct?
Yes.
Ryan? And one is the north entrance.
South entrance facing.
south entrance,
Yes.
right.
And the west entry, the one that you're pointing at, is the entry that we are seeking relief for.
Right. The south entry, we don't need relief for because the grade is level at that. area.
Correct. It's under the 15-foot requirement.
Okay. And A6, this is the south elevation, which again, this is the one that we're not asking for relief for, correct?
Correct.
And again, it's the same thing, Vic Majetti Hall.
Yes, and-
Is the engraved area above it?
Correct.
Okay. Now, this is the west elevation here, and this does show the steps and the area where the sign would be located, correct?
Correct.
And you'll notice there is some grade change here that's shown actually on the plan itself.
Yes.
A8, that's just the freestanding sign. Again, not really relevant to this. A9 is just showing the mounting, I believe, for the south entrance. And let's go to A10, because A10, now that shows the dimensions that we're referencing here, correct?
For the south elevation, yes.
For the south elevation. And then A11 shows, again, the appearance of what it would look like.
For the south elevation, which is very similar to the west, yes.
And then A12 shows the dimensions for the west
Correct,
elevation. Okay.
yes, with steps.
And here's the steps, and we're showing basically that it's a little less than 15 feet to the bottom of the lettering, and then the 7-inch lettering adds another 7 inches to that. But the total from grade to the top is 19 feet, 5 7/8 inches.
Yes,
Is that right?
correct.
Okay. Why? What's the purpose of, why is this arch higher than the other arch, and why do we need the lettering above the archway?
Really, it has to do with the grade changes that you've spoken to. We have several steps leading up here, which we don't have at the south elevation. We are replicating the same type of signage, the engraved in our precast, same lettering size. We just want to have it over our west entrance, similar to how we have it over our south entrance.
And it's engraved in the stone, correct?
Correct.
So it's precast?
Yes.
Engraved, all right. And this doesn't show a real close-up, and again, doesn't show the steps, as I mentioned previously, but A13, this shows the Vic Majetti Hall and the archway and what the sign would look like, or the lettering would look like. We
Correct.
refer to it as a sign, which under the Radnor Code is a sign, even though it's just lettering, but,
Yes.
okay. That's all I really have, unless the board has some more questions. And we have Chris here, too, to answer any questions if Chris needs to be sworn in and answer anything.
For roof height, we'd be averaging the grade, correct, around the building? That's not done for something like this?
The roof height measurement is spelled out how it's done, signs from grade.
Thank you, that's all I need.
So A13, this is building to West Tower entry. That's the one that we're talking about, but that depiction doesn't show the steps, correct?
Yeah, the steps show, yeah, that's correct. A12 dimensions, yeah.
So the rendering is done pre-design, so this was before we figured out exactly where the grades were, which is why it differs from the true elevation that you see with the steps.
Okay. And is it fair to say that but for the grade changes, you wouldn't need zoning relief?
Correct.
I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Anything else, Nick?
No, that's all. I just request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Without objection. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move to grant the applicant the relief it seeks for the lettering for the name of the new library above the West Tower entrance. Is that correct? And based upon the testimony and the exhibits entered made a part of the record before the board, and for the reasons set forth on the record, I move that the applicant's application be granted.
Is there a second?
Second.
We'll switch it up this time. John? Vote?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Okay. Appeal number 3194, the applicant Radnor Township School District, property located at 656 Clyde Road and zoned PLU, public land use. The applicant requests a variance from sections 280-112D and E and 280-145A through I of the code to disturb the existing man-made steep slope areas. The variances are being requested to allow construction of a new school to replace the existing school for the current building, to replace the existing school for the current building is unable to be renovated to meet current programming requirements. Mr. Falcone, how are you?
I should call Nick back. I mean, it was going pretty well. Give him a break. It's good to see all of you tonight. It's been a little while, so everybody's looking well. I am here tonight on behalf of the school district, as you had just noted, and some renovations that are coming down, or more than renovations, a new building over at Ithan's Elementary School. As you all are fully aware, it's a beloved elementary school in the district. I'm personally connected to it. It has educated all 4 of my kids. So it's an exciting project, but one that has certainly been given an awful lot of time at the district level as they've evaluated what is best for this building and what is ultimately best for the community. So we are seeking 2 variances, both with respect to slopes on the site. The first is to disturb just general steep slopes on the site to construct the building. That's 280-112D. The second, at 280-145A, is to permit the removal of vegetation inside of steep slopes. This is all centered around constructing a new Ithan Elementary School building on the property. As you all are aware, Ithan is unique in its current situation. It's a single-story building. It has an open courtyard in the middle. It's, again, it's beloved by the district. So it's an old building. It was constructed in 1963, and unfortunately, it's just tired at this moment. And so, as part of the district's overall study of its buildings, which was done in 2021, it became apparent that the Ithan building itself was in desperate need of repair. And they immediately undertook an investigation as to what that would take. Could they save that building? Could they fix kind of the areas where that it was most in need? What they quickly found was fixing the building was not the ideal situation for a whole number of reasons, not the least of which is that it would have cost more than $16 million in today's dollars to do that. Very significant repairs. Understanding their task, providing the best possible education facilities for the students in the district, and doing that in a way that's most effective and most sensitive to the tax base, they ultimately pursued, after months and months and months of discussion with staff, stakeholders, parents, teachers, just about everybody you can imagine, including myself, as to whether or not it made sense to do that new construction, and ultimately they landed that new construction was best. And that was kind of step one in the process for the board and the district. Once they ultimately decided that it was time to construct a new building, the next question was, where do we build the building? You look at Ithan's campus, you think, man, they could put it just about anywhere. They could certainly find an area there that will be compliant. There is really not that much space on Ithan's campus that does not have some natural feature that constricts future development. There are woodlands, there are wetlands, and of course there are lots of slopes. And so when evaluating the current condition, we actually were able to identify an old plan dating back into the 60s when Ithan itself was constructed. And so we were able to identify that some of those slopes were in fact a part of that. They were created as a part of that development. We've marked that in our exhibit package, and we'll get to that. So with that in mind, and thinking about what was best for the students to keep them on site and educated while this construction process was going, the building itself was sited behind existing Ithan, which will allow the students to remain in school throughout the construction process. And then once the building is ready to come online, the kids can move over, they'll demolish existing Ithan, and things will run as normal as they can during that type of a process. That was also a very significant decision for the district. Obviously, they want to make it a seamless and excellent education experience for the kids that are there. And they ultimately decided that moving those children off-site into an office building, which is the alternative to what they're doing, was not kind of in the best interest of the student at this moment. Especially coming off of the COVID experience for some of these kids, being in the building, being present, and having that community was very important. And so that brings us to the application tonight. They are constructing the building, again, immediately adjacent to the current building, and on many of those slopes that were created as part of the initial building, they're going to be disturbing them again in order to build this building. It is a critical thing for the district. It's a critical part of them doing what they need to do for the betterment of the students. And so they were certainly sensitive to the township's ordinances when designing this building, and they charged their consultants. I can tell you I was part of those meetings when they said, you know, we have to be mindful. One particular member of the board who has served on the planning commission in this township advised them of the significance of the ordinances, and so they were mindful as part of that discussion, which is a good thing, which ultimately led them to a well-designed building, I believe, and one that is sensitive to the current conditions. So we appeared before your planning commission before coming to you tonight. They unanimously recommended the two variances that we are seeking. We have also started the land development process, and as part of that process, we are engaged with an arborist who has done a tree study for the overall site, has come up with a forest management plan. We're working with the township's arborist on that, and we are slated to appear before the shade tree as part of that land development process. So all of those things are kind of in the works. This is the threshold issue for us as to whether or not this building can move forward kind of as designed. I think it's important to note that the relief we're seeking tonight is, again, a threshold issue for us. If we aren't able to get over this hurdle, this building can't be constructed, and the alternative is to demolish the existing building, to displace the students, and to kind of work within that criteria. With that being said, even with that plan, there will be slope disturbance that will be necessary just because of the grading necessary to construct a new building. So I have two witnesses with me tonight. I have our engineer, and I have a representative from the district. So I've marked a handful of exhibits. I'll just quickly identify them for you, and then I'll call my first witness if that is okay with the board. The first is Exhibit A1, which is our application and our narrative. A2 are copies of the deeds that ultimately get the property into the district's hands. A3 is that 1960s plan of the construction of Ithan. A4 is a series of aerial photographs. A5 are some renderings and plans, really depicting steep slopes. A6 is a steep slope plan that is just focused on the disturbance of the vegetation. A7 is a impact chart, again, dealing with the vegetative impact. A8 are some photographs of the current site, as well as specifically the slopes. And then A9 are copies of two different CVs with respect to the engineering firm. Elizabeth Baldwin, who will be our witness testifying tonight, is A9, and then Hugh Cadzo, who's the landscape architect, is A10. If any questions happen to come up specifically for Hugh's expertise, we would call Hugh. And I also have Dan Bechtold here, who's the assistant to the superintendent. And I will call him just briefly to talk about how we got to this from the district's standpoint. So, if there are no questions for me, I can call Liz. Does that work? Great. Liz, can you state your name and get sworn, please?
Yes. Elizabeth Baldwin.
Maybe I can open up an exhibit book here. Might just help. You can keep that for your testimony.
Okay.
Flip this for the folks at home. Proposed plan, right? All right. So Liz, you've been sworn. We'll go through some testimonies. Just keep in mind that you've been sworn here. Liz, by whom are you employed?
ELA Group,
And what's your position with ELA?
Senior Project Engineer.
And can you describe for the board your educational and professional background, please?
I've been working in the industry for 15 years, 11 of which is at ELA, and then maybe 16 years, I guess, at this point, but another 5 at some other firms, one in the area. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering at University of Rhode Island and received my PE maybe in 2013. So I've been practicing as a licensed engineer for a little over 10 years.
And we've marked as Exhibit A9 in the packet a copy of your CV, which you've reviewed, and that's an accurate depiction of your professional education background as you've just described for the board?
Yes.
And have you previously offered testimony before boards or commissions in Pennsylvania in the
Yes.
area of civil engineering?
Yes, I have.
And have you previously been recognized as an expert in civil engineering in the Commonwealth?
I have.
I would like to offer Elizabeth as an expert in the area of civil engineering.
Any board questions? No. Without objection.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, has your firm been engaged as the engineer for this project?
Yes.
And you've been chiefly assigned to the engineering aspects, is that correct?
Yes.
And can you please describe for them, using Exhibit A4A in the packet, what exists on the property today?
So currently, it's an existing elementary school with some associated athletic fields and parking and some, I guess, adjacent buildings that they use for educational purposes.
Do you know when the school was originally constructed?
1963?
And your firm has been able to identify some of the original plans that were associated with that construction, is that correct?
Correct.
And we've marked those as Exhibit A3, correct?
Correct.
So, turning back to Exhibit A4, can you describe for the board what is being proposed?
Oh,
I got it. You can just,
here's 4.
yeah.
So,
That's a
yeah,
good
I think
one.
the green one's a little better. Currently, it is, we're reusing the existing drive up to the main entry of the building, and we're proposing a new elementary school and new parking and some additional athletic fields.
And you've visited the site, is that correct?
Correct.
And you've studied the existing conditions there, specifically the natural features?
Correct.
And during your inspection of the property, did you identify any areas of steep slopes?
Yes.
And your firm prepared exhibits which depict those slopes, is that correct?
Yes, we
And we've
did.
marked those as Exhibit A5? Yep.
Yeah.
So Exhibit A5A is showing us the current Ithan building, correct?
Yes.
With these steep slopes colored behind it.
Correct.
And if we turn to A5B,
B?
we are seeing on that exhibit the proposed Ithan Elementary School along with those same slopes. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then I think if you turn to exhibit A5C and then through that list, you'll see kind of a close-up depiction of the new building and the new design. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as we've marked as exhibit A8, some photos of the existing slopes. Is that correct?
Correct.
And those were collected by your firm.
Correct. So I think right in there is.
And is it your understanding that the district is seeking relief to disturb, let's go back to, just so the board has it in front of them, to disturb the slopes that have been identified on exhibit A5A, is that correct?
Correct.
And they are colored in pink and purple.
Correct.
And how do those existing slopes impact the proposed development at the new Ithan Elementary School?
So a lot of that, where the steep slopes are being disturbed, is going to be where the new school has to come in and kind of meet the existing grades. And right now, the slopes are obviously steep, but we also wanted to maintain the distance from the existing property owners over there as well. So we did implement a lot of walls in that area to try and mitigate as much disturbance as we could. But
And you heard me mention in my opening that many different options for locations of the school were considered. Is that correct?
correct.
And while your firm was not part of those initial discussions, you've been part of the discussion since that point.
Correct.
And is it your opinion that the current location, as it's being proposed, is the most desirable for this property and for this project?
Yes.
Do you believe that it would be possible for the district to have constructed this school building in a location on the site that would not need relief from this board?
No.
And based on your evaluation of the property as a whole, would you believe that the location that is chosen is, again, the most desirable?
Yes.
Can you talk about maybe some reasons why you believe it to be the most desirable from some other options that you've had the opportunity to look at?
Yeah, so they're reusing the existing entrance is one of the primary things where we're not proposing a new entrance, we're not impacting the traffic around there. And then also, as you can see just from these exhibits, is we are maintaining as much of the tree line as possible, which is just a great benefit to have the building where it is, while also honoring the district's wishes of being able to keep the existing school in use while we're constructing the new school. There's also, a significant amount of stormwater management that is proposed in here, but being able to reuse those areas for athletic and play areas for the students is a big benefit as well.
So you have been working with the current consultant team on the final location, the kind of final siting of the building. Is that correct?
Yes.
And has it been your task during that process to make sure that the building is sited in a way as to limit to the greatest extent possible the slope disturbance?
Yes.
And is it your opinion that the proposed disturbance will not have an overall detrimental impact on the health, safety, and welfare of the community?
Yes.
So if we look at the second area of relief that we're seeking tonight, which is disturbance of slopes as they pertain to vegetative conditions, if we turn to Exhibit A6, does this exhibit depict the areas of slopes, again colored, I think, in blue and yellow, but then an area in green that shows disturbance of vegetative conditions within those slopes?
Yes.
And within that area marked green, is the district proposing to remove certain vegetation?
Yes.
And has your firm engaged with an arborist to study the trees on the subject property?
We have.
And what's the name of that firm?
Brandywine Urban Forestry, I believe. Brandywine Urban Forestry. Yeah.
And your firm has worked closely with your arborist as well in creating the proposed plans, is that correct?
Yes, and our staff landscape architects.
And did that arborist team create a study of the entire property as it relates to the existing trees?
Yes.
And as part of that study, has the subject area, again marked in green, been evaluated?
Yes.
Looking only at that area, can you tell the board how many trees are being removed?
130, is that Exhibit 7?
A7, correct.
Yeah, so 130.
And Exhibit A7 is showing us the existing number of trees to be removed from those slopes. Is that correct?
Correct.
And a replanting plan has also been developed?
Yes.
And how many trees are being proposed to be replanted in this impacted area?
110.
And that plan was prepared by the arborist team?
Yes.
And they were working in conjunction with the township's arborist?
Townships and our landscape architects.
And the district, this goes a little bit beyond our relief tonight, but the district has also committed to an overall forest management plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it's the district's intention to revitalize many of the woods, not just the impacted woods, around the property, and to ensure kind of a more sustainable growth. Is that correct?
Correct.
If the relief is obtained tonight, will the district proceed through the standard land development process, including meeting with the shade tree?
Correct. As you stated, we're already in process for that.
And with respect to removing the existing vegetation in that steep sloped area, will there be an impact to the buffer on the property?
We actually will be enhancing the buffer area.
How about impact to stormwater management? Will there be kind of an impact by removing those trees within that vegetative buffer? How does the plan kind of propose to address those issues?
So obviously, we will meet all the regulations of the ordinances and DEP. However, we will be improving the stormwater management conditions and mitigating all association with the new development. So we will be improving from the existing condition.
And one of the things to consider when you disturb slopes generally is the ENS impact. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how have you accounted for that on this project?
Currently, we're in process of designing a very intense phasing erosion and sediment control plan, which will be, vetted through the township staff and DEP. So we're implementing, sediment facilities, a multitude of different measures to mitigate the sediment leaving the site. And so ultimately, there can be no sediment-laden runoff leaving the limited disturbance during construction.
And when you designed the final site, when you worked with the architect in the district, is it your belief that there is a plan that could have been put in place that would have less of an impact to the vegetative slope?
No.
So you're aware that the board has to consider kind of general criteria when issuing any variances?
Correct.
And you've refreshed your recollection of Radnor's criteria, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to walk you through some of those for the board's purposes. Is it your opinion that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that are peculiar to this property that create a hardship in your mind?
Yes.
And using that same logic, is it also your opinion that the hardship existing would preclude the district from developing this property in strict accordance with the code?
Correct.
And did the district create these conditions, in your opinion?
Some were created back with that 1963 plan, but ultimately, there's a lot of areas that they did not create. So it's kind of a mix of the two, I would say.
And that includes the slopes, the woodlands, and the wetland areas?
Correct, yeah.
And will the variance, if granted by the board, alter, in your opinion, the essential character of the neighborhood?
No.
And are the variances, again, in your opinion, the minimum necessary for our proposed use?
Yes.
Will they have a material or detrimental impact on traffic?
No.
And you have, as part of this process, worked with your traffic engineer to evaluate that traffic impact?
Correct.
And you mentioned there will be no new access points created as part of this application?
Correct.
And many of those traffic issues will be discussed and fleshed out during the land development process?
Correct.
But the district is committed to satisfying the requirements of the ordinance?
Yes.
Will this disturbance of steep slopes create a a logical, efficient, and economical extension of public services? Will it have any detrimental impact on those?
No.
Will it have an impact on the surrounding neighboring properties and their use as residential?
No.
And the current use, again, is a school.
Yes.
Is it your opinion that the project itself can move forward without obtaining any relief?
No.
I have no additional questions for Liz.
Any board questions?
And I want to remind everybody, Dave served on the school board in Radnor for 5 years. The area where the buildings are going are currently playing fields.
There are some fields that are behind the building, John. They have that green top. Some of that, midget field won't be impacted, which is their primary playing fields. And then they have at the bottom of the hill, they have kind of that open area where they play soccer and football and other stuff. There is some impact to some of those recreational facilities located behind, as well as some playground areas. Is that correct, Liz?
Correct. But we are proposing a new play surface area, which will be regulation size. Yeah.
And then
So in this,
along Sproul Road are those horrible buildings, the trailers.
Yeah.
And a really nice playground.
That's correct.
So that'll just be relocated, or?
yes, so there's a new playground in the back of the school, and then there's also an additional, I believe it's for the kindergarten use, another playground. So unfortunately, yes, that has to get disturbed for a stormwater management facility.
But to your point, John, part of this whole process is to be able to bring those kids into the building and get them out of the trailers and so forth.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Nothing else.
Are there any existing stormwater controls on that site?
I would not, okay, so there's existing
It feels like a
stormwater, there's
rhetorical
not a
question.
management control.
Management,
So, yeah, so we will be definitely enhancing the property.
It'll be very beneficial to the hills of Bryn Mawr especially.
Yes. And just the erosion of the waterway that's on site.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
So again, I had mentioned, I do have a representative from the district, if the board would like to hear from him. If not, we are happy to kind of conclude our presentation.
I think it's up to you, council.
Yep, I think we could conclude the presentation based on the evidence from the engineer. I would ask that the board please accept into the record our exhibits.
Without objection. Are there any public comments? You can come on up.
Hi, Betsy Michaud. Betsy Michaud, Betsy Michau. I'm here on behalf of the Radnor Conservancy. We were curious to see the plans, and we just had a question about the location of the trees that are going to be removed. If I wasn't sure if we could see it on the actual.
So the area of tree disturbance, Betsy, is this dark green area.
Okay.
Inside the slopes.
Inside the slopes. Is it possible to show it on the photograph?
I don't believe we
Or is
have.
that just from a visual of?
Oh, so, yeah, maybe. We're going to try and circle maybe the area for you on an aerial photograph. If we could just have 1 minute to, thank you.
Dave, while you're working that out, I have a suspicion you're going to encounter issues with the Shade Tree Commission. You're only proposing to replant essentially 1 for 1.
Yeah, that's
And
going to
that,
be an issue.
I mean, I wrote the original shade tree ordinance, so
Yep.
that
We are aware, it's actually one of the discussions we're having a lot internally. So we're working with the township's arborist, and what they've found as part of their study, John, is there's a lot of really bad trees that are dead and invasive inside those woods. They believe in the direction we're being given, and again, we're going to flesh this out with the shade tree and with the arborist in the township, and we're going to do whatever they want us to do. But the priority should be to have this management plan in place to replant significant and impactful trees, and then have a management program to maintain them so that the woods can actually be utilized in a way that's beneficial, rather than overcrowding the areas and planting and then ultimately having no trees thrive. So we are going to take the direction from the township. That's where we believe we're being steered at this point. We will obviously, as part of that process, do whatever they tell us to do.
Yeah, the woods there are probably what would be classified as low value.
Very low value, correct. And just, again, a lot of...
A tree.
Yeah, a tree's a tree,
Yep.
and woodlands and forestry is important. But no, I appreciate that. I just wanted to sort of visualize where, if it was on the street side, if it was behind the school, just as we're following, and we're happy to help and consult with you guys in any way, you know, as far as the replanting and advice on that. And there has been some ordinance changes recently that we were a part of, just, you know, as far as the ash trees that you might want to consider too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, did you point out on a exhibit? I may have missed that if you did, just so that the record's
The
clear.
area that's being disturbed?
In answer to the question that was posed.
Sorry. So we did point out on Exhibit A4A, the area that corresponds to the dark green on A6.
Okay. And are there any exhibits in front of us tonight that show where those 110 trees are intended to be replaced, or not yet?
So we believe we are going to be replanting in the same dark green area, those 110 trees, but that ultimate replanting plan and what's driving that will come through the land development process with the guidance of the shade tree.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, sorry. Any other public comment? I forgot where I was. Oh,
So just to add that we are, I think there's...
still there?
I took it.
No, there's almost over 400 trees being planted throughout the site, so this is just that area of the steep slopes that we're discussing.
Thank you.
I just have a brief question. So, and forgive me if it's maybe getting a little bit too far ahead here, but one of my considerations is just you'd be having an active construction site next to an active school. So just what are some of the if you can speak to this, so just some of the safety considerations. Just, I've been around plenty of construction sites, so I'm familiar with everything that's going on.
So it was actually, again, one of the most significant questions that the board itself tackled, which was, do we demolish this building and build in its place, or try and construct around it? So they've hired a construction management firm who's going to stage construction, and part of that being to try and have the most impactful portions of the construction being done starting right when school ends during that initial stretch in the summer, and then getting what they can done during the year, and then doubling back down on that process. Part of what makes district construction more difficult than just kind of your average developer is you're beholden to those timelines, because if you're a month late or 2 months late, it creates a much more significant impact on the student. So that's understanding there is no perfect answer to this question, but they believe, based on their construction schedule and the way that they're constructing the new building and the way that existing Ithan works, because of its current shape, the way that the open air is in the middle, and that the way the classrooms are themselves spread, they can limit the disturbance, not eliminate it. But much is going to be driven by the timing of this and making sure the district stays on course to have the most significant construction and demolition when the kids aren't there.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
What did we do when we built the middle school?
I don't
Do you
know.
remember? I know. the Radnor Middle School was constructed before they tore down the old middle school.
That's right. They do have some kind of experience with keeping activity and building next to it, so it's a tough process.
Any other public comment? Seeing none. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Go ahead, John. I make a motion in front of the mic that the variance being requested for the construction of this new school be granted by this board in consistent with the discussions here tonight, testimony and drawings presented and exhibits. There are two variances, section 280-112 D&E and 280-145A through I.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? No? Well, all I'll say is I appreciate the presentation. Thank you. I think that it has been carefully considered and with respect to the code and the limitations needed for a variance to create the least impactful proposal with respect to these steep slopes. Well, I guess I shouldn't say because I'm not an engineer, but to me, that entire property is one giant steep slope. So it's amazing that there's any flat portions that exist. But no, so yeah, I'll be in favor of the proposal. Any other discussion, comment?
Just that, you know, as you said, it's a beautiful site for if it was a farm, for example, but there's no level spot on that property. And it was originally, it's two parcels, right?
It is two parcels,
Are they
yeah.
gonna leave
They've combined it. You can see in, I think, the deeds that there's some part of the land development process that's going to be a lot consolidation.
Great. That's important to the neighbors, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a vote. John? John?
Aye, I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good luck with the project.
Good seeing everyone.
All right. Okay, we will see everyone at our next meeting, December 19th. Norma, I'll wish you an early happy birthday for December 19th. We stand adjourned.